Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me join you today and for taking time out of your day to listen to this presentation. My name is Elise Ibendahl. I'm a professional engineer here in the United States, and I live in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm a certified floodplain manager and also an Envision Sustainability Professional. That's what the ENVSP stands for. Here at CH2M, I'm the East Region Technology Lead for Flood Risk Management, and I've been here at CHOML for almost 18 years, my whole career. I graduated in 1997, and pretty much ever since then I've been doing a lot of hydrologic and hydraulic modeling in many, many different platforms, steady state, unsteady state, just about any package you can imagine, I've probably run it. So it's really, really exciting for me within the last year or two, whenever I've started getting introduced to Flood Modeler and its predecessor, learning all the different things that it does, and starting to introduce it to our internal staff here in the United States, and I'm excited to share it with you. I do a lot of classic stormwater management studies. Pretty much anything that goes downhill is what I tell people. Is the kind of work that I do and I enjoy doing. A quick introduction of Flood Modeler Suite. It has 4 components. The Flood Modeler Pro is the main software, Flood Viewer, Flood Alert, and Flood Portal. Flood Viewer is just a simple, intuitive interface. It works in a web browser, so you can see results in there and visualize the flood information. Then it integrates with Flood Modeler. So that's nice, and you can see here a picture of it actually being used in an emergency situation in the UK with David Cameron. Flood Alert. It's available for free, and it's not here in the United States, but it's an example of what we can do with mobile technology to alert people. It can give a live status of flood alerts. It's available on multiple platforms. You can see here it's in the Apple Store, Google Play, BlackBerry, and Windows. And it's customizable. That's what I really enjoy about this suite of products, is that you can do a lot of different things with it. You're not locked into, this example that you see here is for the UK environment and agency. But you could do it for other agencies and other situations. Now, Flood Portal is kind of organizing information. It's a little bit beyond asset management in the designation records, compliance reporting. You can also integrate your flood maps and your investigation records, and also use it for incident records and analysis. So that's another really interesting component of the suite. Flood Modeler Pro is what we're going to be talking about here today. I'd like to remind you that there's also a free component that you can download, and you can try out the software that I'm going to show you right now. You can try it out for free, and actually you can do quite a bit with it before you need to use the Pro license. And everything that I do today will be done with the free license, actually. It has streamlined workflows. You can pull in web mapping services as the backgrounds. The file management structure, I think, is really interesting. It pulls it all together. And there's a new licensing structure, too. If you've used the software's predecessor in the past, I think you'll find that it's changed, and it's good. I think it's really good. So it has backward compatibility, open file structure. The productivity tools are great, and the solvers really are quick, robust, and reliable. They've been in use for over 40 years, so I really enjoy using it for that reason also. And the integration with third-party software is fantastic. It integrates with SWIM, 2Flow. We can do flood forecasting with Fuse, and we're always looking for other opportunities and looking to the future for what we can do with it with that third-party integration. So you can use it for all different kinds of flood peril, identify flood risk. It actually has a damage estimator in there as well, forecasting, warning, incident management, a lot of the things I've mentioned. And I like that you can use it to do a lot of different flood perils. Just within the last few months, I've used it for coastal applications, riverine applications, and urban drainage. And it's worked well in all of those. When you build a model network, I want to point out on this slide that you're not locked into just one grid size. And you can have multiple grids at different sizes. If you look, the pink lines are actually going to be, those are your one-dimensional cross sections. You can extend them. You can put them in and out of the reservoir over where it says the 2D domain 3. It's lower resolution. We didn't need as much there, but as you go over, we got the flood relief channels, and there's an area we wanted to know more about in this particular model. So there's a higher resolution grid over there to take it to 2D. And you got a medium resolution over here. So I think this figure just really, I think, explains the flexibility of the software and the different, especially different 2D domains and things that you can do with it. So I know that was a really quick overview. We're always here. We're always happy to answer any questions anyone has. But at this point, I am going to go ahead and open up the software. I'm actually going to open up a new instance of Flood Modeler, and I'm going to take you through the process of building a one-dimensional Unsteady model, and then we're going to take it a couple more steps further, and we're going to end up doing a part of this model as a two-dimensional domain that is linked to the 1D model. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually start with a steady state model, but I want to show you the interface. This is built in an open platform, so you've got, the kind of tabs we're used to up here across the top, but you've also got other areas, and I found them to be very intuitive as I've learned the software to really use it over the past few months since it's been released. Over here on the left, under New Project, is where you're going to have all your project, your simulations, your initial conditions. Basically, it drives the main components of your model you're going to be able to find over there. The layers down here, I love this. It's very similar to ArcMap. I'm a very heavy ArcMap user. You hit that plus sign, you pull them in, the layers work just like it, and we won't show it today, but actually it's got shapefile manipulation tools and really GIS data. You can manipulate it and do a lot of the things you can do in ArcMap. You can do right here without leaving the flood model or environment, that's just been wonderful. I really enjoy it. Over here you'll see the network. It doesn't look like there's much in there right now, but hopefully the way we've got this demonstration set up, you'll be able to see how it populates and how it works. And the default initial conditions, I'm going to show you how that works too over here. It's nice to just always keep that filled in with what you're going to run and have it ready to go. So the first thing that I'm going to do is show you to add some GIS data for the background. Like I said, it does have WMS compatibility, so you can pull in maps from a web mapping server as long as they are on the same coordinate system you're going to be building your model on. Go for it. It's fantastic. For here today, I've already got my files set up. You can add GIS data by just clicking on the Add GIS Data button up here, or you can just hit plus down here, Load GIS Layers to Map. So I'm going to click on Add GIS Layers, and I'm going to add an aerial photo. I'm going to add my center line. I am going to add my cross-section cut line, and I'm going to add, this is a 5-foot grid that I'm going to add for my DEM. So while those are loading, you're able to move and manipulate these very similar to ArcMap. I'm a little bit picky when I model, as I'm sure many of us are, and so I got a certain way I like to see things. So as you can see, I'm just grabbing and moving up the layers so you can see them on there, and it kind of bugs me in this case that my DEM wants to come in blue. I want it to be grayscale hill shading, so I just click right. I clicked right on the ground grid, and I'm going to go ahead and set it to a gray color ramp for the gray hillside. So I was thinking about changing that color ramp. I'm going to, this cross-section shapefile that I brought in, that's all it is. It's just a shapefile. So I need to actually cut the cross-sections using the DEM. And I'm going to do that with what we call the toolbox. There's a couple ways to access the toolbox. You can access it up here off of Map Tools, other tools, or you can go down here, which is, I don't know, I find myself naturally gravitating to this one. And there's all kinds of tools in here, and this is where you're going to find some of those GIS tools, but in this case, I'm just really interested in doing my one-dimensional cross-section. So as you can see, there are a lot of options for how to get your cross-sections in. You can even just build them automatically by having a certain spacing. In this case, because I already have the cross-sections, and these are from a project that we did for Forsyth County in Georgia. It's the Etowah River. So this is an excerpt from that model. My colleague Patrick Gervais did a map update. It's a regulatory map update for Forsyth County. So we took that same data, and that's what we pulled in, and that's what we're going to run through Flood Modeler here. So I actually want to take a shapefile to a river section. Okay, and so I need to populate the boxes, but the really great thing about Flood Modeler is that it's very intuitive in that it looks at what I have pulled in and it knows that this is going to be my cross-section file. I already know that in that shape file I have columns that have my cross-section labels and the distance in there. If I didn't have that, it would assign them default labels like XSEC 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you can put in a default distance. So I can do that for you, and it already knew where my grid was. It found that 5-foot grid that I've loaded in already. It's even wanting to give it a standard name for me. I'm going to go ahead, because I'm a control freak, and just make sure it's exactly where I want it, what I want to name it. So I'm going to call it ETO XSEC. So in the if you look down here, it'll always tell you what kind of file you're getting. Flood Modeler takes care of all that file management for you, but it's still good to pay attention. It's good modeling practice to know what kind of extra files you got. So I've got all of those in. I'm going to say OK, and that's actually going to cut my cross sections and build the section file. Now the next thing that we are going to do is build our 1D network. The way I'm going to do that is actually it's on the home menu. So you can see it turned these purple because it knows that I now have an SEC file and it pulled those in on the side. If I reset this to network though, my model does not actually have that cross-section data in it yet. Okay, so that's important to note. So we need to go ahead and build an actual 1D network. So this is the 1D box. I'm going to go ahead and click New. I'm going to call it 1D network. Oops. Underscore. So we're going to call it that. Now, this is one thing that me being in the United States, we're in US units, which is different from the rest of the world. A very important thing to always check on is the 1D options and make sure that your units are set to what you want, be it US or SI. So I've confirmed that those are US units. That's a step that you always want to do. So as I mentioned, I don't have any cross sections in here yet. So I'm going to show how you get those in. And I'm going to right click in the network box. I'm just going to do that where there's white space. So I right clicked and that brings up, I'm bringing up the file menu. I'm just going to go import model nodes. Now see, it sets the default to the DAT, but actually I know that I have them in an SEC file because of the way that I brought them in. So I'm going to click on that SEC file. I'm going to say open, and you can see them all. There they are. They're still not in the model. I'm going to highlight the first one, scroll down, highlight the second one, and this might just be my favorite trick in Flood Modeler. It gives me a kick every time I do it. You just grab them all, and you put them in here, and you wait, and magic happens. It more or less just builds your model for you right there. If I want to see what those cross sections look like, I can either click on the icons. You see them in here. Those are actually the cross sections all joined together. Or you can click on them off of the network and it brings up the dialog box. I don't know if you noticed, but I brought everything in with just a default Manning-Zen coefficient of 0.03 for all those cross sections, but you can go ahead and edit it in here. You can edit them in the text files. If you're a real modeling nerd like me, sometimes you just want to go on the back door and edit the text file, and that's really easy to do. I've done that in here quite often. You can plot them, see what it looked like. It cut this off of the DEM just now. So that is finished. Looks like those all came in great. So I'm just going to say OK, and I'm going to close out of that. I'm going to go ahead and save my project now because I've done modeling for long enough that I am highly paranoid no matter what platform I'm working in. I save early and I save often. So I've gone ahead and saved the project file, which is what's pulling together all these little files. And if you look here, my default conditions are still 0 because I haven't run it yet and I haven't loaded anything in yet. In order to run it, I'm going to need to have I'm going to zoom in on the upstream end so that I can add some flow. So how do you do that? I know that I'm in my 1D model and I want to add a hydrograph. There's a lot of different ways that you can develop flows, as there are with a lot of modeling software. We've incorporated the SCS methodology for the US, and this and here's some other examples that we have. These are, you can do head time, a lot of different options here. I'm just going to do a very simple flow time hydrograph. Now watch my mouse as it moves down. You see that it turns into a pencil, and that's how you can draw it in. And I want to put it near, but not on, the cross-section I'm going to connect it to. This ETO 30686 is my upstream most. It brings the list in upstream to down. So I want to type in ETO underscore 30686. Now you notice that's identical to the name of that upstream cross-section. And that's on purpose because as I hit OK here, it knows that that node already exists in the model. It wants to connect them. So that's the tip-off to the software that you want to connect to those, the fact that they are named the same. The other thing I want to do here is move this up because Flood Modeler really likes to have like components of the model together in the network. So I went ahead and moved my, my boundary condition up so that it's not breaking that up. Now, I need to add some flow to that. And once again, I can click over there. I can click over here to make the pencil go away. You just click on the arrow. So I can now select that, double click. All I'm doing is a steady state model here. So I'm just going to put in 5,000 CFS at 0 time. That's enough to fill in that condition. I also need a downstream boundary condition. So I'm going to scroll to the downstream extent of my model. And then I'm going to do it different this time. I'm going to click right on that, and I don't feel like panning around, so I'm just going to click right, and I'm going to go to the selected node. And there I am at the downstream end. In this case, I'm just going to keep it simple for now. I'm just going to do a normal depth boundary. Again, you can see that my mouse turned into a cute little pencil. So I'm just going to click on it right there. That's all I did was click on it. And again, it's the same thing, ETO_0. And when I hit OK for that name, it knows that the node R exists in the model, and it's going to connect them. And it put it underneath it, so it's not breaking up my block of rivers. So that's a good thing. And you can see that it drew the line to connect. So you see here, even though I got my river center line, there's the graphical display of that cross-section, but what the model's really seeing is the icons and the link connections. So I just wanted to point that out so you can see what the model is seeing. Now, I need to put my input into my downstream boundary condition. So there's different options here too. Again, I'm just going to keep it simple. I'm normal depth. And I'm just going to go with the default user-specified slope value. I really like this slope calculation vet button. It's not what I'm using today, but it'll just automatically calculate it for you. I mean, if you're just doing a really quick initial run and you just want to get the water in it, run, see what happens, that button is a beautiful thing, I have to say. So I went ahead and I got that set. I'm going to hit save. And now I'm ready to make my first one-dimensional simulation. There's a couple ways to do that. You can go to Simulation tab, New 1D Simulation. There seem to always be a couple ways to accomplish things, which I think is pretty neat. Or go to Simulations tab, click right, New 1D Simulation. I'm just going to call it ETO Steady 1D. Okay? I'm going to hit Save. And it pops it up. And, it's just steady state, so there's not much to do other than hit Save and to run. Save the changes to my file. It ran, which is a very good thing, usually does. And there you go, you can kind of see the results that it did there. And this is fun. It just shows you right away. You can look at a table, your Frauda numbers, your stage, everything is right there. It's laid out real simple. So this is very similar to what we have in our Hydrographs model. There's no bridges or anything in here, but Flood Modeler does bridges. I'm just keeping it really simple for right now to get through this in a short amount of time. So I'm going to save that, and I'm going to close it again. I want to convert this to an unsteady state model. To do that, it's going to run best. It's got to have some initial conditions. So this is a part I personally tend to forget because it's not something I'm used to do with the kind of modeling software I've used. I tend to handle that in different ways. But in Flood Modeler, the best way to do it is just to go click right on that, go File, and import initial conditions. Whenever I ran that 1D steady, it made that ZZS file. So all I got to do is open it. And if you look at the default initial conditions down here, I went ahead and filled them all in. So now that I got that filled in, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save the project again. So I want to change this. I want to put a hydrograph in here. I want to make something a little more complicated. I've actually got my hydrograph already typed. I'm going to copy it from my other display that you can't see. I'm just going to hit Control V. I hit enter too soon for you to see what I did. But if I bring it back, you can see that full time series is in there. I'll just hit plot, and you can see that I've got a 24-hour hydrograph in there. This isn't the full hydrograph that we used for the FEMA analysis. It's simplified a little bit just so I can get it to run through for this pretty quickly. It runs pretty quickly anyway, but we're just keeping it simple, so it's a simplified hydrograph. Say, okay. I'm going to save it again. So I need to make a new simulation for this because I want to save my old one. I don't just want to edit it. And so this is kind of how you can do some scenario management too. And I think it's a pretty simple easy to understand way to do it. And I've had some models I've done with a lot of different scenarios, and it's pretty cool, the different things you can do with the scenario management. This is just the tip of the iceberg on that. But this is going to be an unsteady simulation. I want to do it with a 10-second time step, and I do need to tell it how long I want it to run. It's not going to just automatically pull that off of the hydrograph. I'm just going to run it 24 hours. I'm not going to allow for any extra lag time. I just really want to capture the peak for the sake of this demo. So I'm going to say save, and I'm going to run. It wants me to save. I'm just always going to say yes. Now, I like how it shows you some information while it's running. It'll show you these red bars here, kind of tell you where you might want to look back and see some model convergence issues. It's nice when you're debugging, and you can look at your inflow and your outflow and how it's progressing with time on that bar. You can also view your output file. So this is more diagnostic files that it pops up for you, and I'll show you the results at the end of the demo whenever I'm comparing how the 2D also looked. But it tells you exactly what time step I had those convergence issues that you saw in there, and just gives me a lot of interesting diagnostic information. It ran that unsteady model in 11 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and close that, and I'm going to hit save again. I want to show you, though, I'm not going to show you the plan view results right now, but what I am going to show you is how you view a long section. That's something that you use quite a bit when you're doing flood modeling in general. So I'm going to just click right, and I'm going to select long section. And now that I've had a model run, it's got some results in there. So all you got to do to see those results is click right, hit animation, and hit play. These jagged lines you see up here are the banks. So you see I've got a low right bank right here. I bet that's going to flood, and watch, it goes over. So that's a tip off to me that I want to go look at that area, and I want to see, maybe that's a good area. Maybe it's a really wide floodplain, and that might be a really good place to do a model in 2D. So let's go ahead and investigate that. I just so happen to know where it is. So I'm going to zoom out, and then I am going to pan over to it so that you can see where that area is. I'm going to zoom back in. So you can just click right to zoom in, or you got your controls there. Again, there's multiple ways to accomplish things. So you can kind of see on the grayscale of this is a 5-foot DEM. You can kind of see that that's a flat area. So I want to model just this area. You can see I've got really short overbanks on the right over here too. And so I'm going to draw an active area in there. That's how I tell Flood Modeler where I want to do that simulation. So if I go to the 2D build and I were to click on active area, it would set me up to where I just draw the polyline, and I can draw it in there. Another option, however, is to draw it in another software program and just pull it in. So in this case, I've already drawn the active area because I don't think you wonderful people want to sit and see me draw. So I'm just going to pull it in, and there it sits in my layers. So I've got my active area. The other thing that I need is how to get my 1D cross sections to talk to my my 2D area. So what I need to do is have a line that does a border that tells it how to translate those flows back and forth. So to do that, there's actually a tool built in that's called the link line generator. I can go through and populate these boxes, and then it'll create the shapefile. It'll have all the fields that it already needs and everything, and set it up. And then I draw it. There's snapping tools and everything that can make sure that I snap to the ends of these cross sections and get it set up okay. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to do the same thing that I did with the active area. I'm just going to go ahead and add the link line that I've already drawn. So you can see it in there in the yellow. If I zoom in a little bit more, you can see how it's snapped to the edges of those cross sections. And I want to show you one more thing. If you go to home, you can add the labels. So I can see that this starts at 17,869. And so that's, if I were using the link line generator, I would tell it goes from 17869 to 7134 is the one at the bottom. And that kind of frames our active area. You can turn all kinds of things on and off. I can turn my nodes, my links, all that good stuff off or on, and the labels too. So now that I have those, I pretty much am ready to set up my 2D simulation now. So I'm just going to go ahead. I think you guys know the drill now. I'm just going to go click right on simulations, but this time I'm going to say I want to do a new 2D simulation. I'm going to put it back in the same folder where I put everything else, and I'm going to name it ETO 2D. Okay? I'm going to save it. And it automatically pops up the box for me to go ahead and populate. Again, I need to tell it how long I'm going to run it. Now you see here it's January 1st, but whenever I click out of that box, it goes ahead and it figures out what my end time is based on simulation time I put in. That works either way. So because I'm doing a linked 1D, 2D model, I just click this box right here, Add Linked Model. And I'm going to take the Unsteady 1D model that I ran, and this is another thing that I think is just so cool and so fun. I swear they programmed it just for me. But if you just click on that Unsteady 1D model, you drag it over, and it just fills in the boxes. I don't have to think about where all those individual files are. They're already set up. They're all ready to go. It works with my shape files too. My 1D, 2D link, I'm just going to grab my link line over here on the left, drag it over to the right, and there it is. And then I'm going to populate my domains tab. I'm still using that same ground grid, and it's a 5-foot grid. But I want to run it as a 10-foot grid. I don't quite need that resolution. I want it to go a little faster, and yes, I want to recalculate the rows and columns. So just resizes my grid just like that. Another thing that I think is pretty awesome for 2D modeling. Because I can just keep running this same run file and changing my grid size as I get it down to exactly where I want it. My active area, same thing. Just grab it, bring it over, and there it is. I'm going to use the same overland roughness for everything just because we're keeping it simple here. And another really important thing, especially if you're working on this in the United States, is change the unit system. Click right, it even tells you how. It's set to SI right now, so I want to change that to US. I'm going to hit save, and it's going to save that 2D file. So I'm going to go ahead and hit run. Now, I'm going to actually switch flood modeler profiles while that is running. So that particular model, whenever I run it, I just want to give you an example of the runtime for what we just set up. When I use a 5-second time step and a 20-foot grid, it runs in about 10 minutes on a standard laptop for a 24-hour simulation. I think the one that I've got set up right now might take, I don't know, 15 minutes or so, and we don't have that much time, so I've already preloaded the results in. What you're looking at right now, the yellow boundary, is what was submitted for the flood insurance rate map revision for Etowah River in Forsyth County, Georgia. As you can see, it was a more detailed model. We had, we did the tributaries and everything in the Unsteady model. In this case, we just did the main branch. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the Unsteady map. And if you look at that, I mean, this was a pretty simple, quick exercise, and it matches pretty darn good. It was exciting to see how that came out. I'm going to zoom in just to really show you how nicely it matches. Let's go for over here. So you can see we don't have it going back into the branches because that was flow coming down from that tributary, but it's pretty bang on through there. Different software, pretty much the same results for the 1D Unsteady simulation. Okay, I'm going to zoom out again, and I want to show you the two-dimensional results now. what I have loaded in here, it'll produce depth grid, I think it does velocity, and you can see here there's kind of a hole in those 1D results because the cross sections were so short. If I were to, let's see, so that's the cross sections, let's bring them back up on top. And so it's drawing them on top. So you can see they stop. So my unsteady flood map also stops. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the 2D results. So they nestle right in there. This is the water level, but you can also do depth grid. And again, you can see it matches really, really well. And so it's exciting to see. I think it's a great new tool, almost a toy for me. I've really enjoyed getting to know to use it. I've only been, Flood Modeler's been out, I believe, since April. And I've been using it quite a bit since then. The predecessor software I've been familiar with and used it a handful of times. But I wanted to share with you that I haven't been doing this particular software forever. If you've been around doing hydraulic modeling for a while, like I have, you can pick it up pretty easy. There's some things that are a little different, but I think it's really intuitive and different from anything else I work in that it has the integrated tools. So I'm going to switch back to the PowerPoint now, and let me pop it up. And I think we've all had fun with the presenter view not coming up the way you want it to. So there's different solvers. What I used in here, I think I had it set to the ADI, I'm not sure. But, you know, you can, they each excel at different things. You know, we did both the steady and unsteady in this. And there's also the fast solver, which I've used for a couple of different applications. And it's great just to get an initial cut of what your results are. If you're doing urban flooding, you want to know where the trouble spots are. Or if you want to identify what you might want to look at in more detail, it's really nice to use for that. So we have our website. Since you all registered today, I think that probably a lot of you found the website already, but there's a really great user community out there. It works on mobile and desktop. There's new features out there if you haven't really looked at the website in a while. That got a facelift too whenever we released Flood Modeler Pro. Your support tickets are in there. Register for events. I recommend you check it out. And if you want to share this webinar with anyone later, it'll be recorded and up there, I believe. And we have social media channels also. So with that, I just want to thank you for taking some time out of your afternoon to spend it with us and to hear about the software and see the demonstration. I think I'm the first American to present on this webinar series, so I don't know if that makes you feel a little special, like it's historic or something, but I've certainly enjoyed sharing the story with you and spending some time on the demonstration this afternoon.